Oh, hi there. Hello, hello, hello. Chitty here, or John, whatever you want to call me. Amy says hi. Says hi. Say hi to the camera, Amy. Say hi to the camera. You go. Okay then. Now, let's get into the reaction of today's video, lol. Literally. Okay. Today's video is from Kings and Generals, a very popular channel, very big channel. The creation of the medieval Roman army. Go check it out. I'm gonna leave the original link into the description box and to the pinned comment, basically. So go check it out. And yeah, without further ado, let us begin. Let's put this to 1080p and let's begin. Okay. Let's make it for now this sound.
Historians go to great lengths emphasizing that the so-called Byzantine Empire was not a separate entity from the Roman Empire, but served as a persistent remnant of the larger structure which survived for 1,000 years after its western half collapsed.
Yeah, it's crazy that nowadays it's the norm that you have to explain to the average viewer that what the Byzantine Empire is. Like we're talking about the medieval Roman Empire and we say, okay, remember this empire is called the Byzantine Empire, but it's actually the Roman Empire. We should just start calling it the Roman Empire. The only way to stop calling it Byzantine is to stop calling it Byzantine, literally. Like every time it's about, Byzantium, you just call it Roman Empire or Eastern Roman Empire if there's a Western, simple as that. So yeah, but it will take some time. So yeah.
Despite this indisputable heritage, there were differences between Rome under Augustus, Marcus Aurelius and Honorius, and the Byzantine Empire of Justinian, Basil and Nikephoros.
Not really. I mean, there were differences between Augustus, between Octavianus, between Marcus Aurelius, and between Honorius themselves. Those three pretty big differences, different eras, different administrations, different governance, different ways of life, different economy, different everything, literally. Same with Justinian, same with Heraclius, same with whoever this guy is. Same with Basis, same with Nikephoros, So like yeah, honestly. I would say that Justinian and Honorius are the closest because they're closest in years and they have the closest things similar to each other, honestly. On this lineup, obviously. So yeah.
One of the foremost ways in which the Byzantines broke from their predecessors was in military doctrine.
Indeed. Much like the ancient Romans, the Romans of the medieval times adapted and improved on their military technology as time goes on.
Although not nearly as elevated as the notorious Legio in terms of sheer power.
I mean, in terms of discipline and in terms of manpower, yes. In terms of manpower and discipline, the ancient Romans were peak. However, in terms of tactics, in terms of strategy, in terms of technology advancements, the medieval Romans takes the cake.
Byzantine armies did adapt in true Roman fashion to fit the methods of the age in which their empire existed, becoming in the process one of the greatest armies in the medieval world. Join Kings and Generals once again as we progress into late antiquity as the Romans did, and describe the armies of the mighty Byzantine Empire throughout its long existence.
Suffer as I have suffered.
Shout out to the Ridge wallet for sponsoring this video.
Shout out.
We've been using wallets kindly provided by Ridge for 2 years now and can confidently say it's one of the best products we currently use, so we recommend Ridge wallets to all our viewers. They don't fold, don't bolt in your pocket, are light, with a modern, sleek and industrial design. Ridge wallets are a great gift for you and your loved ones. Ridge holds up to 12 cards and has an attached money clip for cash.
Nice.
It comes in 30 different colors and styles, including our favorites carbon fiber and burnt titanium. For us, switching from the old wallet to Ridge was like going from an old chair to a super fancy gaming armchair. But don't take our word for it. Ridge has 40,000 5-star reviews. Each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty, and the Ridge team is so confident that you'll like it that they'll let you try it for 45 days. If you don't love it, just send it back and get a full refund.
Nice.
Support our channel and get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/kingsandgenerals and using code kingsandgenerals.
If you do that, if you want to.
Belisarius' personal historian Procopius penned one of the most
Yep, Flavius Procopius, the historian that recorded the events during Belisarius's campaigns. During the Justinian's period.
seminal pieces of ancient literature relating to the early Byzantine Empire, and specifically Justinian's Herculean attempt at reconquering the West. After his introduction, we might expect the chronicler to describe the emperor, Belisarius, or the background of his work following the fall of the West. While such profiles do come later, the very first thing Procopius details is a piece on the nature of military change and resistance to it, calling out those readers who might decry modern achievements as unworthy in favor of essentially recalling the good old days of classical Rome. The historian further goes on to outline how some individuals choose to narrow-mindedly deride Byzantine archers, while at the same time lauding close combat fighters who resemble the Roman legionaries of old. Whilst acknowledging that yes, sometimes in the past, bowmen were forced to hide and seem cowardly, Roman archers were different. Clad in protective armor, these expert horsemen used a bow as their primary weapon, but also might carry a shield, spear, or sword.
Obviously,
Still, Procopius.
Like, what if your arrows run out? What if you lose your bow and your arrows? Like in a combat situation, what do? You also need to protect yourselves in a way, you know.
Laments, there are those who take into consideration none of these things, who revere and worship the ancient times and give no credit to modern improvements. Essentially, the great historian is giving 6th century Byzantine traditionalists a verbal slap in the face and telling them to get with the times. Fortunately for Rome,
He basically also sent a message to modern, people who say, oh, the legions were so much greater than the Byzantine armies, whatever they were. They don't even know what the cataphracts were, lol.
Rome's eastern remnant, the diminished empire did just that, adapting constantly.
Yep.
This example from Procopius's first book is just a single but incredibly stark instance of how the standard military doctrines of Rome as a centuries-old, unquestionable hegemon began evolving and molding into that of a limited empire on a controlled and incredibly slow decline in power. The fact that the Byzantines were able to make this transition without succumbing to inaction shows us just how resilient the empire was.
Yep. So many times the emperor should have died. So many times the emperor should have been saved. But that's how the Romans were in the ancient times, in the medieval times, and even during the late Middle Ages, even towards the end of their state.
In essence, to change from iconic Roman military styles was in fact more Roman than maintaining outward trappings.
Yep.
The drill and discipline legions of Caesar and Augustus had been reformed by emperors at the end of the 3rd century crisis
during Diocletian's reign.
into the late imperial forces of Limitani, Comitatensis and more, detailed in the Notitia Dignitatum. 5th century disruption
I got to read up on Notitia Dignitatum.
and
I think I butchered that name.
collapse, barbarian incursion, monetary shortage, purposeful change, and other factors led to the reborn, small and elite army of Byzantium in the early 6th century, where strategy and generalship were more important.
And I agree with that, honestly. Like, if you put this army, who is more strategic and has overall greater generals than... No, not Republican Rome was pretty good with generals, but with ancient Imperial Rome, let's say during the Marcus Aurelius, not Marcus Aurelius, but before the third crisis, before the crisis of the 3rd century, basically, if you put that ancient Rome against the Eastern Rome will definitely win, because their tactical and maneuvering advantage is way higher than the manpower and discipline advantage the ancient Romans had, So yeah.
and cavalry increasingly prominent. Still, we must also quash the simplistic notion that the Byzantines' new emphasis on cavalry led to the utter dereliction of infantry forces as
Nah,
nothing more than cannon fodder,
that's not wrong.
herded at an enemy as a meager distraction, while mounted troops did the real work.
Maybe in some cases, like in some decades of the empire, but that was not the norm. Trust
In
me.
this process, we must describe this new premier man of the Roman army, Procopius's vaunted armor-clad archer mounted on horseback. The glacial process leading to the development and adoption of the Byzantine hippotoxotai heavy horse archers of the
I think it's pronounced tokote or something, or toxote, or toxoti, because toxo in Greek means bow, and toxoti means literally the bowman or something, you know.
6th century and beyond, might be viably said to have begun as early as the late 1st century. However, if a single date has to be chosen for the date that the transformation from Roman to Byzantine military truly began, one might choose August 9th, 378,
Yeah.
the Battle of Adrianople, when invading Goths tore an entire eastern field army apart, triggering a number of unprecedented responses within the buckling Roman Empire.
And you have to remember that an entire Eastern Field Army, like entire Roman Field Army, is pretty big. It was like in the tens of thousands, you would say. Normally, in a battle, if you lose the battle, you wouldn't get your entire army decimated. And that was very rare to happen, like very, very, very rare. And because like the goats did it, then of course it sent shockwaves towards the Roman Empire, the Roman world as a whole.
As the Great Migration continued, and disparate barbarian coalitions, most prominently the nomadic horse lord Huns, shunted others to the west throughout the 5th century,
Yep.
these groups brought their practices and tactics with them. Particularly, following the Hunnic Empire's collapse at Nidau in 454,
Yep.
a vast quantity of barbarian mercenaries spilled out from the steppe, using their exotic mounted skills to gain employment in the armies of the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
Procopius details many a foreign cavalry unit hired on behalf of the emperor in Constantinople, such as the Heruli, and how they
Yep.
played a direct role in the Byzantine military and a key part in ensuring its conquests went well. However, the mercenaries' battle tactics also found their way into textbooks and manuals for training homegrown cavalry, while nomadic equipment and loadouts were adapted and sometimes even improved by imperial generals for use
Of
in the
course.
future. The model heavy-mounted bowman of Procopius's first book, for example, most likely wielded a standard symmetrical composite bow as his primary weapon, replacing the spear and javelin-armed horse of earlier days. This design of bow, in particular, contrasted with the asymmetrical bow favoured by nomadic horse peoples such as the Huns. The modification was almost certainly made because this more standard model was simpler to manufacture in large numbers,
Yeah,
and
makes
therefore
sense.
equipping the troops would be easier.
Yep.
For protection, this ideal trooper donned armour, including a mail corselet and greaves, but notably did not wear any kind of helmet, so that the accuracy of his archery wasn't significantly impaired.
Yeah, because his head wouldn't be as heavy, so when he will need to like raise his head up or go down, then the heavy weight wouldn't like impair his vision as well. And of course, the helmet also has like some protection around the forehead and eyes, and it might impair the vision as well. So I understand.
Instead, the Toxotai would rely on the use of a small shield to protect his face from enemy attacks.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, it is also probable that, unlike Cataphractarii, Hippotoxotai did not clad their mounts in armor. Making effective
Yeah.
use of the Empire's terrain-specific resources, the Byzantines reared notably powerful Cappadocian steeds, which, bred in military stables especially established for the purpose, could easily maintain high speeds despite the fact that armored men were mounted atop them. Nomadic influence
Interesting.
can also be seen in the training and tactics of the armies of Justinian, such as in the practice of archery, both mounted and on foot. In contrast to the
Interesting.
method of their Sassanid enemies, which relied on blocking out the sun with a massive blanket of massed fire to inflict casualties. The Byzantine modus operandi was to depend on accuracy, precision, and stopping power.
Yep.
This quality rather than quantity approach was derived from the Huns. Different types of mounted troops supplemented Procopius's armored cavalry archers depending on the situation, and as mentioned, many of these horse warriors were allies or mercenary foederati brought into the empire from outside.
Yeah.
Much like the eponymous Germanic troops of the United Empire's final decades, these Byzantine foederati were unassimilated barbarians armed in their native styles but fighting under Byzantine command.
Yeah.
Among the myriad
Kind of like they're basically like the auxiliary, basically. Like how the auxiliary in the ancient Roman state, republic or empire had the auxiliary, having different barbarians in auxiliary. Quite few, only few thousand, but still it helped quite a ton in the battles,
peoples who served in Justinian's armies were the Huns themselves,
Yep.
Gepids, Goths, Heruli, Slavs, Bulgars, Berbers, and many, many more,
And even Turks, honestly, even Turks as well.
whose names are either not noted down in the historical record, or whose contribution became overshadowed by other barbarian groups with
Yeah.
whom they served. So in this domain, we clearly see continuity in that the early Byzantines kept up the Roman practice of welcoming barbarian troops into the army, except they did so more eagerly and in a more controlled fashion. Such a vigour for drawing the best of the barbarian military talent is exemplified clearly by the array of foreign leaders who became high generals in Justinian's service, despite the taboo that may have developed against such a practice after the collapse of the Western Empire.
Yep.
Much
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially like if you're knowledgeable about Belisarius's expeditions, you know that in his armies there was like lots of barbarians, even barbarian leaders. Especially at the fight of Dara, I'm pretty sure like a barbarian leader, a barbarian general captain managed to kill another Sassanid general or something of sorts, maybe. So it's like it's really interesting that the Romans stepped up with foederati after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, obviously. So it's pretty fascinating.
like the retinue of vaunted commanders under Alexander the Great or Napoleon,
Yep.
those of Justinian were skilled at their craft. 4 names early in Justinian's reign come to the fore: Cydas, Mundus, Kilbundus, and Belisarius.
Yeah, Belisarius only one of whom was
Only
Roman.
one of whom was a Roman.
Yeah, because I know Mundus was a deserter of I don't know which state, but was a barbaric deserter, and led the campaign in Illyricum, in Dalmatia in Illyricum, where his son was killed, and he also was killed later on by the Ostrogoths. And I also heard about Citas somewhere, but about Chilbundus, this is the first time I'm hearing about Chilbundus.
Roman to Byzantine continuity wasn't only maintained and expanded upon in the realm of foreign recruitment. Contrary to popular belief, as we have already mentioned, credit must still be given for the maintained quality of infantry troops,
Yep.
which, although no longer the neatly polished, standardized soldiers of the old Roman legions, were still a considerable force to be reckoned with, and who played their part well in the new Byzantine warfare. They were also far less one-dimensioned than the old legionary heavy infantry.
Proto-state
Armed
infantry.
with roughly 2-meter-long spears and bows as standard, supplemented by a spather-like sidearm, the new legionaries, known as protestate, would drive their primary weapon into the ground at the approach of an enemy, loosing bow fire into the foe until their progress began to slow, at which the spear was taken up again. Such a formation of relatively short-weaponed spearmen provided a good middle ground between the flexibility of gladius-wielding maniples and the rigidity and range of an old sarissa phalanx.
Yep.
In his work, Procopius details an occasion in which some Byzantine heavy spearmen, the armor-clad protestate elite, were charged by Gothic cavalry who thought these footmen to be an easy target. They were badly mistaken.
Yo.
Gathering into a compact but not overly cramped space, The infantrymen raised their shields and thrust forward their spears, holding
Damn.
ground and pushing on. Most impressive is Procopius's detailing of how none of the spearmen interfered with any of their comrades, so sophisticated was their training and proper interval maintenance. Regular leather-armed spear, javelin, sling, throwing axe or dart-wielding infantry formed the inner mass of Byzantine infantry behind the outer shell of heavy spearmen and in front of the archers. They were perhaps trained in a lesser manner, but ability and some level of discipline were clearly maintained. In this way, the so-called Protestate infantry of the Byzantine Empire was a throwback to the Polybian Legion. A heavy triarii equivalent was in the vanguard, followed by mid-range missile-throwing troops and then archers at the back.
I didn't know that, honestly.
One aspect of Byzantine warfare that would have made earlier imperial emperors and military leaders scratch their heads in confusion was the buccellarii. We know a significant amount concerning these household troops, named after the buccellatum ration biscuit from Belisarius's.
Of course, of course. The Bucellari were the ancestors of the Varangians, bro. They were the Bucellari were the ancestors of the Varangian Guard. Obviously, makes sense.
Contingent in the Vandal and Gothic wars. Unlike many of the other military phenomena of the age, this was a completely alien practice. Buccellarii were essentially privately hired personal guards who held direct loyalty to the general by whom they were hired rather than to the emperor in Constantinople or to the wider concept of the empire.
Yeah, like the Praetorian Guard, honestly, yeah. Even like the Varangian Guard, you know. It's like in between a normal army and a personal army, you know, kind of like in between of those things, you know. So actually, I kind of like this concept, honestly. I wish that they would have kept it, honestly.
Such mercenaries often formed the core comitatus of a general, his closest companions and personal army, and were often professional, elite troops, which a much larger army could be formed around. They might be Roman, but many buccellarii consisted of steppe nobles and their retainers who were hired by a general before or during their campaign. This kind of powerful private army was an unquestionable danger to the emperor in Constantinople, who risked deposition at the hands of soldiers who owed no loyalty to him. However, the famous Nika riots were suppressed primarily by the small contingents of buccellarii under generals Mundus and Belisarius. Had these key power brokers leaned the other way, however, Justinian might have had a real problem on his hands. To many scholars, this lack of a monopoly on military force is a symbol of the decrease in imperial authority. Imperial legions of old, the Byzantine armies of Justinian's Age of Reconquest, as we have detailed, were often incredibly small by comparison. While 4 centuries before, Trajan was able to rally up to 200,000 men for his conquest of Dacia, Belisarius was only able to bring about 7,000 to bear during his initial landings in Italy, although he was reinforced.
And you have to realize that was even less than his Africa campaign when he brought up like 12,000 troops, you know? Like, that's crazy, honestly. And during Emperor Trajanus, the whole legions of the empire rounded up to like 400,000 troops and even more, counting up, obviously.
Forced significantly in later years. This decline is due to the simple fact that the old class of Roman imperial citizens, upon which the ever-expanding legions depended for manpower, was all but gone by the time of late antiquity. What replaced it was this smaller but infinitely more surgical and balanced Byzantine army, developed by absorbing equipment, training, tactics and doctrine from some of the empire's greatest enemies and greatest failures. Such a comparatively restrained amount of military power provided the impetus for Byzantium's sophisticated and tactful approach to warfare and relations with foreign powers as a whole.
Indeed.
It might even be said that this latter approach, by necessity, was far more intelligent than that of the United Roman Empire,
because it was,
which came before, simply due to the fact that the hegemonic Romans did not, before the very end, need to be overly smart when dealing with foes.
Yeah, because the only true uh threat to them was Parthia and Sassanids in the late antiquity. You have to realize that the barbarians at the time, they were disunited. They were not as united as during the late antiquity, during the medieval age. And obviously, the Romans of antiquity didn't have to deal with united steppe nomads with uh, states born out of nowhere from barbarians. They didn't. I mean, I'm not saying that the empire during ancient times was weak. Definitely not. I'm just saying that if they were to be put in the same place as the empire in the 4th century, they would have lost, and they will need to adapt and basically become the Byzantines.
Those foes could just, most of the time anyway, be crushed under the weight of a legionary's boot.
Yep.
Still, when laymen and even some historians look at the Byzantine army in comparison to the old Roman one, they rightly see a diminished force. But it is worth considering Caesar, Germanicus, Trajan, or any of the other greats, and how they would view the new military if they were transported forwards in time.
Yeah.
Given the available resources and situation that the Byzantine Empire faced, matters could have gone far worse.
Of course. The Roman Empire as a whole would have literally ended in the 3rd century, literally during the crisis. And even after that, many times.
In our next episode on the army of the Byzantines, we will examine the unique phenomenon
The Strategicon
of military manuals that arose in the empire. Specifically, we will file through the ancient pages of the Strategicon, authored by Maurice, and probably some others, relating how this text became the handbook for imperial warfare for centuries to come.
I might check it out. The Strategicon, I wanna buy it somewhere. I don't know from where to get it, but I want to get it as well because I'm really interested. And Emperor Mauritius issued it. So I mean, I don't think he wrote it. I don't think he wrote it, but like I'm pretty sure he issued it and he did implement some stuff. Like he did know about it and he did tell the writers to specifically say some things. So yeah.
So make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see the next video in the series.
And you to me as well.
Please consider liking, commenting and sharing. It helps immensely. Our
Me too.
videos would be impossible without our kind patrons.
Thank you very much. I'm also gonna subscribe to this because why I haven't subscribed. I'll leave the link to the video. Byzantine enemy, my tactics. The Byzantines, our tactics. Oh man, I mean that's true. That's true. So yeah, thank you guys so much for checking in. I really love the video, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Lol. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, my name is Jackie, John, whatever you want to call me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.